All right, welcome everybody. Today is Wednesday of week four. We're like halfway through week four. Um, so today's question of the day is if you had to suggest a restaurant to a person that isn't local, what restaurant would you have them try? What restaurant would you suggest? Like to someone here in Guam that hasn't been here. Um, I'd say, it's a tough one. I don't even know have an answer. Uh, My girlfriend just said full balsa, but I'm not going to suggest a Vietnamese restaurant to someone who hasn't been in Guam. That's a good restaurant, but I'm thinking, dang, maybe like I would have maybe done Linda's if they were here. I really liked going to Linda's before. I grew up going there, but since they're not around anymore, maybe like Ron's Diner. I don't know if you guys know Ron's Diner in near UOG. I like Ron's Diner. I used to go there, get their Karumpika or the Stafao or peanut butter French toast, actually. That's a really good peanut butter French toast. Stuff like that. So I think maybe Ron's Diner. I don't go there as often as I'd like, but for someone who isn't local, I think that's probably what I'd suggest. I think obviously there's a lot of good restaurants that, and feel free to suggest one that isn't, I guess, like a local thing in a sense, but that's what I think of when if like someone who isn't local. Junior, the first on my screen. Please feel free to share next.
Shoot. Yeah, Linda's man, onion steak.
Nice.
A lot of early morning visits there coming back from wherever we were at. Um, Mezcla. I do mezcla. Their Denancy is on point, man. So Tanalic and Denancy. That'd be a pretty solid bet for someone to get.
Solid.
Let's see, Matt.
Hello.
So
Um, hmm. Yeah, there's too many. I'd say I'd say Shirley's. I like Shirley's. Yeah. I like their Portuguese sausage with fried rice. Mm. And then Andrew or Adrian.
My name's Andrew for today. Uh, so I, um, there's two that came to my mind, and Junior said it first. One was definitely Mescados. I like their. I just like it in general. I just like burgers. So the other thing that crossed my mind was like heavy hitters because they had like taro burgers. I think it's a pretty. I haven't had it in a while because like they're only available Tuesday, Thursday, and I've been on this diet for about 2 months now. So I'm kind of that's off the menu until I reach my goal. But it's great. I remember one time like I ordered taro burgers like a while back and they told me like, hey bro, I forgot what the reason why. What's the reason why? It wasn't they didn't charge me, but yeah, I just got two taro burgers for free basically. Like I just remember that from the top of my head. But yeah. Uh Ron.
I guess it depends for me, like who's visiting. I get a lot of family that comes through every now and then. My dad comes through for like 2 days or so. But definitely Shirley's. Shirley's like it's a good like a family setting. But like some of my friends who are like doctors or whatever, I don't know, take them to like Pro or something. Yeah, that'll be
oh,
mine.
super cool. Thank you all. Yeah, Adrian, I used to go to heavy hitters. To me, they're not the same anymore. It's not, I don't feel like it isn't as good anymore. But when they were like FBS, Fat Boy Slim, when it was the food truck, I used to go there all the time. I used to train with the guy who owned it, Ray. And so he used to give me food and stuff when we're training. And so no, like I used to get they used to have macadamia nut pancakes and stuff, and Oh gosh, it was so good. They don't do it anymore, but yeah, no, I really like that place. And Shirley's, I love Shirley's. Mescla, I need to go to Mescla more actually. I really like Mescla too. All you saying great answers. That's super cool. Thank you all for sharing. Lana and Kiko will not be here today, tomorrow, and Friday. They are meeting up outside of class because Kiko has some big events going on tonight, tomorrow, like through this weekend, today through this weekend, and so he's not able to make the 6 to 9:30 or 9, and so they're meeting up outside of class around like 1-ish to make up the time. Um okay, but to get started, so today we're going to learn something new within Ruby, something we haven't done before. It's not going to deal with OOP or things like arrays and hashes and stuff like that. We're actually going to deal with file IO or file input and output, basically reading and writing to files. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I already created my week 4 folder. I did that the other day. I'm going to create a new file and I'm just going to call it file-io.rb. File IO, because that's technically what we're going over. File IO. Okay, so yeah, file IO or file input and output. So file I/O, or basically what that stands for is I is input and O is output, which is technically read and write. That's technically what we're going over. So file IO is basically it allows our programs to interact with different files on our computer. And so like if we think about it, like what if I wanted to read, like allow this code for whatever reason to read what's in another file or write to another file, like add to another file. This is kind of using file IO or reading and writing is kind of how we would get it done. And so here's a really basic example. Um, I'm going to use, and so with most of the examples, I'm going to use a begin rescue. So basically the error handling that we were doing, but it's not mandatory, but it's definitely a lot nicer to do it. And I'll show you guys it without it first, and I'll show you guys with it. And so to read a file, so we're going to go like file equals, and I can use any variable I want here, but I'm going to go like file equals, and then I'm going to do capital F file. And so this is something specific to Ruby. So I have to use a capital F there for file. And then I'm going to go dot open because I want to open up a specific file on my computer. I'm going to do a parentheses. And then from there, I'm going to tell it where to look. So for example, if I wanted to look at this OOP review file, I'm going to type in oop-review.rb. I'm going to tell it, hey, within this same folder, because technically this file io.rb and this OOP review are both within the same place. If they were in a different place, I'd have to tell it where to look, and I'll show you guys what that looks like in a sec. But these ones are both in the same folder, which is perfect. So I can just literally say the name of it. And then from there, I'm going to go outside of the quotes, but still inside the parentheses, and I'm going to go comma, space. And then from there, I'm going to tell it what type of file reading or writing are we doing. So specifically, we're going to do read. So read is R. Eventually, we're going to do W, and we're also going to do A. W means write, W-R-I-T, or W-R-I-T-E, and A would be append, but we're not going to worry about that for now. So we're going to do read for R. So the next thing I'm going to do after that is I'm going to grab the contents of that file. So again, I can use any variable I want, but I'm going to use the word contents because technically I'm grabbing what's inside that file. So I'm going to go contents equals file.read. So basically, whatever we read in that file, whatever's in that file, I'm going to assign it to the variable contents. And then finally, I can do puts contents to basically just print out what is the contents of the file. And then finally, the last thing we'll need to do is after we open it, we technically have to close it. So I'm going to go file.close. And just in case, I'm going to go if file. So basically, this if file is saying, hey, if file is not nil, so basically, if file is not nil, close it. If file is nil, like if we try to find a specific what's it called file and it doesn't exist, then we're not going to attempt to close something that isn't there, basically. So that's why we go if file. Okay, cool. So now if I run this, Ruby file IO, Perfect. And so now we can see in my terminal, we printed out all of the contents of my OOP review, which is all this. We can see it started with that OOP, blah, 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 blah. I got some stuff, and it ends with that rectangle stuff here at the bottom, rectangle stuff at the bottom. So cool. So with these 4 lines of code, we were effectively able to open up a file, read it, read the contents of it, print it out, and then close the file again. Cool. So this is without error handling. However, the issue now is like, what if I like misspelled something? Like, let's say I forgot the W or I added test, whatever. It really doesn't matter. Now, if I try to run this, I'm going to get an error. So it says no such file or directory, and then it gives me this error, non-existent if I think this is like non-existent or something. I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but basically we can see it says no such file or directory. And so this is the reason why for today, all of the stuff I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be using a begin rescue. So that way we're not getting these errors and it's not going to break this way. So I'm going to go begin. And then from there, I'm going to tab all of this in. I'm going to go rescue. And specifically what we're rescuing for is this specific error. So I'm going to grab this error. And then from there, I'm going to go here, actually, I'm going to put my end at the bottom because we'll need an end. So within the rescue, basically what we're going to do is we're going to do puts file not found. And then from there, we're going to have an ensure. Ensure is basically, shoot. So it's basically regardless of whether or not this fails or not, regardless of whether or not we get to the rescue or not, it's going to do this ensure. So basically we'll always close the file if file exists. So that's what this last block does. And so the way this is going to work, and actually just to show you guys that this is still going to do, or it's going to work like what we expect. If I misspell a file, cool, we see file not found. And it doesn't give us that really loud error. As soon as I fix this, review, run it again, we can see it works as we expect. And so this is kind of the way it works. We begin, we do what we started begin, we grab the file itself, we grab it. From there, we're going to grab the contents of the file, we're going to read it, print it out. If this file didn't exist, then we're going to print out file not found. And regardless of what happens, we're going to make sure that we close the file if the file exists. Questions, comments about this? Okay, cool. The last thing I did show you guys how to read. I did tell you guys I was going to show you guys how to read from other places. So for example, if I do, let me go somewhere else. Let's go into like week 1. LS. So if you guys are, I haven't showed you guys this since like one of the first days, but PWD stands for print working directory. And so basically this tells the computer exactly where this is, or this tells us exactly where this file or this folder exists within the computer. So technically within my computer, right now I'm in users, Leon Shimizu, desktop, CSG live, July 2025, week 1. And so I'm going to grab this. And this hopefully this works the way that I'm expecting it to. And I'm going to place that there. And then from there, let's say I want to print out practice.rb. So I'm going to go /practice.rb. Okay, let's see if this works. Let me go cd ... cd back into week 4, Ruby file IO. Perfect. So now I was able to print out everything that was in that practice 1. So basically what I had to do was I had to tell it, hey, go to this exact file by looking in these folders in my desktop or on my computer, and then read the file. Before, the nice thing about review.rb, and if I do this, the nice thing about opreview.rb was that it's in the exact same folder, so I didn't need to do all this extra stuff. So I could literally just type in opreview.rb. And so when I do this, we can see it works. If you wanted to read a specific file on your computer, all you have to do is type in that pwd, figure out where is that folder exactly, and then you just have to add that / whatever the name of the file is. Because technically it's telling you up to that folder. So this is the week 4 folder or the week 1 folder, for example, and I just have to add / the name of that file that I wanted. Cool. Questions about this? Solid. Okay. Um, the other quick thing I wanted to note before I let you guys try it out and give you guys an exercise is this file.close. It will not break if I don't do this. However, my understanding of file.close is that your computer kind of has like a limited amount of system resources. And so when you open up a file, you're technically using those system resources to open to view the file or to hold the file or something like that. And so if we did this file.open maybe a million times, let's say, I don't know how many times it would be, and we never closed all of those, then your computer is going to probably be extra slow or it's probably going to have a hard time or something like that. And it could lead to other issues. I haven't done it enough for it to break, but I just know that it's proper. The right way to handle it is to make sure after you open a file is you close it. And so, yeah, just wanted to quickly share that. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and do this. Let me delete that. Okay. Use the code to display. Actually, let me add that back. Yeah, I don't mind it being that. Okay, cool. Let me send this. So you guys' exercise is I want you to practice reading data from a file. So if you want, you can name this whatever you want, but I'm just doing this for example. So you would create a file named example.txt, and you're just going to put some random stuff in it. It could be whatever it is you want. TXT stands for text file. So basically RB is Ruby, TXT is text, PY would be Python, etc. And so if you want to, if you don't already have a file here to use, feel free to use example.txt and create it. And then from there, you're going to create a Ruby script named file io.rb or whatever it is you want to call it. From there, you're going to use the provided code here at the bottom. And I prefer for you guys to use it as a reference and write it out. But if you are in a rush, feel free to copy it. And basically, I want you to run the script and observe the output. Test by changing it is. Basically, I want you guys to try breaking it, see if you guys can get the file not found and fix it and stuff like that. Just try different things. All right, cool. You guys are good to share your screen and try that out. Hey, Adrian, you're really close. I'm not sure. I just got to your screen, so I don't know if you did it already, but it's just that you have it W versus R. Did you mean to change it to W?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if we can read the shopping list Ruby
Oh,
or
yeah.
file.
So go ahead and just change that to R, and it'll read it. You can read it. You can read
Sorry,
it.
I mean right. I bet.
Oh, okay, okay. So just be careful with write. We're gonna go through that next, but be careful with write because write overwrites everything that's in that file. So basically, if you have stuff in that file, it's gonna delete it all and replace it with whatever it is that you tell it to.
Oh,
That's why I'm saying,
okay.
yeah, just be careful with that. Yeah, Adrian, try going to your shopping list or any of those files that you messed with. Okay, cool. That one's still good. I was just making sure it didn't clear them out. Super cool, Ron. Great work on getting it working with like that whole path. I saw you do PWD and all that stuff. And you're looking like a wizard with the terminal. Looking really cool going through the different files and stuff. Really solid. So I'd say, Ron, the next thing I'd recommend you try out is just adding the begin and rescue. Or actually, before you do that, maybe just to show you what it would look like, go ahead and try breaking this. By breaking it, like remove something from here, whatever. Like basically make it so that way this isn't a valid file. And so see what the error is. Perfect. So there you get that. There's where we get that error. No such file or directory. Basically because like that's not a proper, like it's not pointing to the right place. And so that's where now what I would recommend is adding that begin, rescue, ensure. So that way you can add proper error handling so it won't error out like with this huge error. Solid, Ron. And I liked how you fixed the indentation too. Okay. So Ron, why do you think it's working? We're not getting an error, but like why is it not showing anything? What do you think? There's one line of code that you just need to move. My hint to you, and you don't need to answer it out loud, but my hint to you is, yeah, so where are you telling it to print the contents of the file? That's my hint to you. There you go. Solid. All right. You guys are good to stop sharing your screen and let's move on to writing to files. I feel like everyone looks pretty confident with reading. Everyone feels pretty okay with reading files for the most part? Solid. Okay, cool. So, let's go ahead and move on to writing to files. Okay, so now that we know how to read, so actually maybe before we do that, so there's going to be kind of three different modes that we're going to have. Different file modes, we'll say. So we have R. These are the main ones. There are other ones than this, but these are the main ones that we're going to deal with. So we have R, W, and A. R is for read, W is for write, and A is for append. The difference between these three is that read's pretty self-explanatory. I feel like write is going to overwrite the entire file. So technically, you're not editing a file. It's like whatever's in that file, it's going to be overwritten with whatever it is that you tell it to write. And append is add to the bottom of the file. So basically, append is where, like, if you have a bunch of stuff in that file, you can add to the ending of it. It's kind of like dot push in a sense, and for like an array. So like we're dot pushing to the ending of that file in a sense. And so these are gonna be the three main modes that we're gonna deal with. There are other ones like R plus, whatever. We'll get to that potentially by the end of the class, but these are gonna be the three main ones that I want us to go over. And I'll quickly share this with you guys here. I'll just put it in Slack. Okay. So with that being said, now that we're able to read to a file, and I'm just going to leave this here. I'm going to comment that out. Now I want to write to a file. So specifically, sorry guys, give me one sec. Okay. So I'm going to rewrite this code and let's go ahead and do this. So to write to a file, it's going to look very similar. There's going to be some slight differences. So I'm going to go begin. I'm going to do my regular begin and I'll have a rescue and I'll also have an ensure. Cool. So the begin, the first thing I'm going to do, same thing. I'm going to go file equals file.open and then whatever file it is that I want to what's it called, mess with. And so I'm going to create a new file actually before I do this because as I told you guys, it's going to rewrite the file. I don't want it to delete the code that I have in here. And so I'm just going to create a new file that I can mess with. I'm going to do that example.txt. Testing, whatever. I'm just going to put that a bunch of times. Okay. Okay. So let's go back here. And so I'm going to go example.txt. And specifically, now instead of reading, we're going to be writing. So that's going to be a W. And then after that, the next thing we can do is basically we want to put something into that file. And so I'm going to go file.puts. Basically, I'm going to put some text in there. And then it's going to be like, hello class. I can go file.puts, testing again, whatever it is I want it to say. And then finally, just to give myself as the user some feedback, I'm going to use puts successful, or whatever it is that I want it to say. And then finally, I'll do a rescue. I'm gonna do like puts an error occurred and ensure the final thing file.close if file. And so here's how we can write to a file. Really, the important lines here are these two and this W. The W ensures that we're in write mode, and then this file.puts basically puts this text within this file. So we can see right now it says testing. As soon as I go here and I run this file, we see it says successful. And so if I go here, now we can see it says hello class and testing again. It no longer says all that testing. So that's the point that I want to make sure it's clear. When you guys do this, you guys are overriding whatever is in that file. And so that's the important thing to note. If I wanted to just append to it, instead of overriding, I would change it from a W to an A, and then I can keep everything the same. And I can say hello class again, testing again and again. Testing again and again. So now if I run this, successful, if I go back here, we can see there's the original stuff, but then we also have the second time that we ran it, we have our new messages. So this is append. So once again, write, as we have here, is going to overwrite the entire file. Append is going to add it to the bottom of the file. And so those are the two things to really understand there. The syntax for both of those, for everything else, with an exception of the W versus A, is exactly the same for how we would write to the file. There are obviously different ways we could do it, but these are like pretty straightforward. We're just going to take that file that we have and we're going to put or push, like basically write that stuff in there. Yeah, questions, comments about this? Solid. Okay, so I'm going to change this back to a W and I'll share this. And then here I have an exercise for you guys. Okay. So, I have some instructions. So I want you guys to write the user input to a file. So you're going to prompt the user for their name and a message. To prompt the user, it's the same as we've been doing before. From there, you're going to write that information to a file. You could use user messages or you could use something else. It's completely up to you. Actually, sorry, before I give you guys this, I put this note, do not create this file manually. Let's go ahead and write it to user messages.txt. And I do not want you guys to create this manually. The reason I say that is because if you guys remember, when we were reading a file, if a file didn't exist, then we're going to get this error, which is why we're rescuing this error and we're putting file not found. For writing to a file, and I think appending as well, if the file doesn't exist, for example, I'm going to put testing.txt. If this file doesn't exist and I try to open it up, it's going to, and write to it, it's going to create that file for me. So for example, if I run this, it says successful, there's the testing.txt. It created it for us. And so that's why I said, write this information to a file named user-messages.txt. Do not create it manually because I wanted to show you, I want you guys to see that it's going to create it for you if it doesn't exist. But that's also an important thing to note because it's not going to error out if you're writing to something that doesn't exist, then that could also be like a source of issues. And like if you're creating something and like, let's say you wanted to rewrite a specific file, but instead you're writing to a different file. So that's where you have to pay attention to what you're how you're naming here, because that could cause issues if you're not rewriting something or whatever it is. But yeah. So actually, real quick though, I want to test this. If I had this, if it's an append, will it append? I'm going to do testing to, let's see if it creates a new file. Okay. Okay. So write and append are the same. If the file doesn't exist, it will create it for you for both of them. Okay. So back to this. Your exercise, prompt the user for their name and message. Write this information to a file named user-messages.txt. Do not create it manually. And yeah, ensure proper error handling and closing the file. Test it out to see how it created a new file named user-message.txt with that message. Test it out again to see how it deletes everything, basically how it's overwriting it. And so now that you've tested W, or write overwrites everything, now change the W to an A to append to test again to see how it appends to the end of the file rather than overwriting it. And I'd like for you guys to just to test this multiple times, see how it works, see how it breaks, see what happens, etc. Cool. So you guys are good to share your screen and try that out. Hey Ron, you're really close. Um, so right now it looks like your terminal, it seems like you're stuck in the get.chomp. By stuck, it's like it's in the get.chomp. That's what I mean. Maybe not stuck is the right word. And the reason why you're not seeing the what is your name, because technically you're trying to print out, you're putting in the file what is your name. You're not asking the user like putting it in the terminal, you're putting that in the file. Because there's a difference between puts and file.puts. Yeah, so go and do Control C, solid. Try it again. There you go. Solid. And so the next thing though is that now you need to do something with this input. You're getting the user's name, but you're not doing anything with it and you're not writing to the file. So like you're opening up a file and then from there you're getting their name, getting or prompting them for their name, getting their input, saying nice to meet you and success, but you're never writing the information to the file. So that's the next step. Solid work though. All right, you guys are good to stop sharing your screen. Let's go through the solution together and then we'll take a quick 10-minute break. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so let me grab the exercise. That's fine. Okay, so prompt the user for their name and a message. So to prompt the user for their name and a message, I can go like name equals gets.chomp. And actually before this, be like puts what's your name? Puts what's a message you want to share? Or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. All right, cool. And then message equals gets.chomp. And then now I could have done this in the begin. That's completely fine too, but I just happen to do it outside. It's kind of up to you on how you want to structure that. Cool. So the next thing I can do now is I can start my begin rescue. So I'm gonna go begin. I'll have my end. So I'm gonna begin. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up file equals file.open, and then it's gonna be like user messages.txt. And specifically, I'm writing to it right now. And then from there, I can go like file.puts because so now that I prompted the user for this stuff, I want to put their name and their message into that file. So that's where I'm going to file.puts and I'm going to interpolate a message with their stuff that they want me to share. So I'll do like file.puts and then I can do like name colon message. I don't know. Doesn't need to be anything complicated. So it's just a string that I interpolated their name and their message. And maybe to make it more like a chat kind of thing, we can add like that, something like that. And then from there, after that, I can do puts. So this puts is now for the user to read within the terminal. I could just do like puts, your message has been saved. Then I can go my rescue, puts, an error occurred. And then finally, I can do my ensure to make sure that regardless, that if there's a file, we close it. File.close if file. Cool. So I think this should create a file for me. Write the user's name and message, let them know it's been saved, and then close the file, as long as we don't run into any errors. So if I run this file, let's go ahead and try it out. What's your name? Leon. What's a message you want to share? How are you? Click enter, your message has been saved. Cool, and we can go here, user messages.txt, perfect, I could see it. There's my message. What's it called now? What if I wanted to add another message, but I don't, actually, just to show you guys that it's gonna rewrite it. If I do W, what's your name? Next person on my screen is Junior. And what message? Half a day. Click enter, your message has been saved. If I go back, now we can see now there's, it rewrote my file. Okay, so I don't want it to or I did the W. I saw how it deletes everything and it adds the new message. Now I want to change it from W to A. So basically all I can do is I'm just going to change it from W to A. So that way now it appends instead of overwrites everything. So now if I do it again, next person on my screen is Adrian. What do you want, what message you want to share? How's your day? Message has been saved. Go back here. Perfect. So we have Junior and Adrian. It seems like they're talking back and forth. Cool. And I can kind of just continue from here. If I did it again, next person on my screen is Matt. How old are you? I don't know. And then I can do it again. I can do it for Ron, last one on my screen. What's your favorite sport? Cool. And now if I go here, we can see that I have some, what looks like kind of a chat between all four of you guys. And so I could see I just kept appending it to it. And the way I did it was I opened the file up, I have it in append mode, and then I'm putting what the user inputted into that file. And then I'm printing out that it was saved. Questions, comments about this? Solid. Okay, so let me share that solution. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and take a quick 10-minute break. We'll come back at 7:17 and we can continue. All right, welcome back, everybody. Right. See, okay. So sometimes we might so we've officially kind of went through, we're able to read files, we're able to write to files, append to files. But we're kind of dealing with like just printing out when we read a file, we're kind of just reading the entire thing. What if we wanted to go through each line? Like we're looking for something specific or something like that. And that's where we can kind of loop through the file itself to kind of see each line of the file, for example. So, for example, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to go begin, my end, and then from there, I'm just going to go like file equals file.open. I want to open up the OOP review.rb. Specifically, I'm reading to it. And then from there, I want to do file. Actually, let me go and set up my rescue first. Rescue. For reading files, we're going to do this one. It's the like file doesn't exist one. File doesn't exist. Ensure file.close if file. Okay. So if I wanted to loop through this file, Ruby actually has a built-in way that we can do it. That's actually, it's pretty much using an each loop, but it's specifically for reading files. So what we could do is we can go file.each underscore line, do, and then everything else, other than this underscore line, everything else is the exact same as a regular each loop. So now I can go like line, I'm going to write my end, and then in here I could do like puts line. And so now this should have, I'm sorry, not like that, puts line like that. So now this should basically print out each individual line of this file. And to make sure that it's like a little bit more readable, I want to do like, let me interpolate something. I'm going to go this, and I'm going to go red line that. So basically, we read each line of this file is what it should do. It should loop through each line of the file and print out this. So let's see what happens. Let me run it. Perfect. And so we can see here's this entire file that we read or that we had it read, and we're able to have access to each individual line, which is actually really cool. And so now, like, let's say, now here's where I can add some like logic. Like, let's say I'm looking for a specific line or for whatever reason. I cannot think of a good reason off the top of my head, but it's like, okay, what if I'm looking for for every line that references class? So if I was like, if line dot include class, I'm gonna put my end, and then I'm gonna do like, then I'll do this, then print it out. Don't print out the line unless it includes the word class. Now, if I run this again, perfect. We can see it's only printing out the lines that include the word class. So now I can do some more logic if I needed to or whatever. I could do whatever it is I wanted to do to this or needed to do. And so it's actually really cool because now we're able to read a file, but not only are we able to read it, we're able to read each line. And actually, we can look for a specific word in each line and kind of manipulate it in some way if I needed to or for whatever reason, which is really cool. Questions about this idea of this each underscore line? Cool. Okay. So, I want you guys to try this out. This is dealing with read. And so basically, you guys' exercise in here, let me share it first here, and then we'll walk through it. Exercise. Yeah. So I want you guys to do something very similar. And to simplify it, I'm going to remove this condition. There you go. So I want you guys to do something very similar. Basically, read a file, count the number of lines, but I want you guys to be keeping track of how many lines it is there are. and I want you guys to display or print out how many lines there are. So theoretically here, it would have printed out whatever, like 10 or whatever this is, 11 or something like that. So you guys are basically gonna have to figure out how can I keep track of every single time that this thing runs. Every single time it loops, we should be incrementing something or doing something like that. So that way we can keep track of how many lines there are. So to start out, I would recommend just using this simple thing where we're not keeping track of it. I just want you guys to try out the each line function or this each line method, this loop basically, to see how it's just like a regular each loop. After you get that working, then you can figure out how are you going to keep track of the number of lines and count them and display the total. So first, just try it out, see how it works. And then after that, then you can go ahead and try to do an actual exercise. Cool. You guys get to share your screen and try it out now. I added a bonus. Don't worry about it right now, but just to say it out loud. The bonus is to add a condition in the each line loop or that each loop to only count lines that includes puts, for example, or includes, and you can change it to whatever you want. But just for something that we use a lot, I'm saying just only lines that use puts, for example, after you get it working. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to work on this, and I might be grabbing you guys one by one just to say what's up, see what's going on. All right. Okay. So you guys are good too. Oh, yeah, cool. You guys already stopped sharing your screen. We're gonna go through a couple things and then we can go ahead and take a 10-minute break. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So I'm gonna go through the solution together. I'll share with you guys, and there's a couple things we'll go through, like kind of higher level concepts, and then we can kind of then we'll go from there. Okay. So to do the solution, count the number of lines in a file. We could do that by, well, actually, let's just make sure this works. Ruby file IO. Perfect. So I'm able to get all of the lines by doing the file.each line, etc. And so now to keep track of all of them, like how many lines total, we could do like I equals 0. And then from there within here, I'm just going to do like I plus equal 1. And then I'm going to put like read red line number I, for example. And so now this should basically read that we're starting with I0. And maybe I can put it in here. I0. And then from there, each time we loop through, we're going to print out this is line, whatever that is, and I'm going to increment it. And so let's see. Run it. Perfect. So this specific file seems to have 123 lines of code. If we go here, I can see that it does have, technically there's 2 empty lines at the end, but really where it ends right there, it is 123 lines of code. So cool. So that's one way we could do that. There are many different ways we could do the same thing, but right off the back, we can just do I equals 0 and increment it whenever we do that. And the bonus is add a condition in the each line loop to only count lines that include puts. So to do this, we can just go like if line dot includes question mark puts. I'm gonna put my end, and then in here, I'm just gonna move this in there. And so now the way this should work is if the line includes the word puts or the characters puts, then it's gonna basically print it out. If not, then don't do anything. All right, so now if I run this, includes, did I misspell includes?
I think it's include
Oh,
the,
okay.
yeah, no S.
Good call. Thank you, Junior. Yep, you are perfect. You're right. Solid. So in my file, I only have 2 that have the what's it called? Those the total number. And I guess the last thing to do is actually to display the total line account. So to do that, I'm just gonna go outside of this loop and I'm gonna put puts total number of lines is what's it called? Oh, it's I. That's what I was using. I forgot what I was using. I'm going to run it. Perfect. So we have 124 lines is the total. And if I wanted to only count these numbers, then I can just move this I into there. And so now it should be 2. Perfect. So we have 2 lines of code. 2 lines that include that puts, for example. Cool. Questions, comments about this? All right, cool. So I just wanted to share you guys kind of where, like at a high level, where we're going with this, like reading and writing. Because I want to do my best to kind of connect everything that we're doing to like real world scenarios. Like for example, with arrays and hashes and functions, I showed you guys like how in the real world we're going to use like arrays and hashes to store data. Functions are stuff that we're going to be using to manipulate data and stuff like that, and just different things like that. And so for reading and writing files, to be honest, I do not use file IO very often in the real world. I can't even remember the last time, to be honest, that I did use it. However, to me, the more important thing is the idea of reading and writing somewhere. So I guess it's going to take a step back. And the first thing I want to share is that by the ending of today's class, the goal is that, as you guys can see, we're reading and writing to files, which kind of allows us to kind of store some data somewhere. So in kind of in some way, we're kind of having like a database of like messages or whatever it is that we're dealing with. So with that being said, by the ending of today, the goal is that if you guys remember the command line interface that we've been working with, instead of it starting from scratch whenever we start it up, it should be reading some file to kind of treat it as like a database. So that way it has pre-populated data. And so that's more of the idea that I want you guys, or the concept I want you guys to kind of understand in the sense, because in the real world, we're going to be reading and writing to databases. So basically, like when you open up Instagram, it's reading from the Instagram database to populate your page or whatever it is with the data. And so it's reading and writing to that database. And so in that same sense, we're going to be reading and writing to some database eventually. For today, the database that we're that kind of dealing with are these files. And so eventually the goal is to kind of get to we're reading and writing to an actual database, which is what we'll actually be doing next week. Okay, that's the kind of actually there's one more last thing that I wanted to show you guys. This one was thanks to Matt. So that I forgot I could do this. So this file or this error, it's a good error in the sense that if the file doesn't exist, we're kind of sharing that. So for example, if I'm just going to add like test at the ending of this, and if I try to run this, it says file doesn't exist. However, what if there was like more to it than just file doesn't exist? Because like, what if the file did exist? The specific example that I had was, what if I remove this comma? Technically, this file does exist. It does. And so if I wanted to give it a more explicit response, I can do, we've done this before where we do the arrow. And then for example, I do like error, or I could do, oftentimes you'll see E. You can use either or. And then from there, now that I did this arrow with the error, I can like interpolate here. I can go like error, and then I'm just going to interpolate error. And so basically whatever the error message is that we're getting when we get this error, we're going to write it out there. And so if I do this, we can see no such error is no such file or directory OOP review period RBR. Oh, RBR, that doesn't make sense, but it's because I don't have a comma here. So now I can fix that and run it again, and we can see it works. And so this is another thing that you guys can do for a little bit better error handling. So that way you can actually have a better understanding of what exactly is the error. And so you can just basically add the arrow syntax using some word. Again, I could have used any word. If I use test here, it'll work. Test, and to break it again. Perfect. We see it still works. So it really doesn't matter what word you use here as long as you're consistent. It's just going to be an arrow, some word, and use it there in the thing. Cool. Questions, comments about anything? Solid. Okay, let's go ahead and take you guys are being super solid. Let's go ahead and take a luxurious 12-minute break, and we'll come back at 8:10. You guys got a luxurious 12-minute break. See you in 12. All right, welcome back, everybody. Okay. Okay. So, let's see. So there's one thing I'm going to show you guys, but because of the time, I don't, it's not a huge, it's not something super important. So I'm not going to give you guys exercise for it right now. We're just going to kind of go through it really quick. And then from there, then we're going to go to actually reading and writing to files to kind of treat it like a database, like I was mentioning. Um, yeah, actually, I was working on it. I was messing with it earlier. What the heck did I just do? Okay, I'm going to delete all this. Okay, so the few things that, or the couple things that I wanted to go through real quick before we move on to that is this. So originally, this was the different file modes that I shared. These are the most important ones for our use cases. That's what I'll share. However, there are more than just regular R, W, and A. So read, write, and append. The other options that we have are, and actually I'll do it here, R plus. Yeah, R plus. Oh, sorry. W plus. Gosh, there we go. And A plus. Basically, this is going to be read and write. This is going to be also technically read and write, but in a different way. This is going to be read and write with creating a new file if the file doesn't exist. This is without creating a new file if the file doesn't exist. And this is append, or technically read and append. Same thing as this one though, with creating a new file that doesn't exist. So R plus, W plus, and A plus. To keep it simple, I think I would probably always do A plus. The reason why is because to me, I don't want to rewrite a file. I don't want the worry of rewriting a file. And I wouldn't do R plus by itself because it's like if the file doesn't exist, or actually maybe I would do R plus, it's kind of safe because if the file doesn't exist, it's not going to just create it. And so this is maybe a safety one that I would use. And I'll show you guys a quick example of using them real quick. But just to show you guys this, just to go through that really quick. And so here's two examples. Let's do this. Actually, it was messing with this already. Okay. Okay. And I'll share this code with you guys, and I'll also share this. And here's actually a better, do this. Here's a better explanation that I have in my notes. Uh, 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 So here's like a more in detail, and I'll share this with you guys in just a second. Yeah, so for R, R plus, W, W plus, A, and A plus. Okay, so an example of using R plus, and also there's this concept of rewind, and I'll explain why. So regular begin, we're going to open up a file. Instead of it just being R, it's R plus, because we're going to read and write. And then from there, I'm going to print out the original content of the file. So I want to read the entire thing and print it out. Puts file.read. That's the same exact thing that we've been doing when we're reading a regular file. Content equals file.read, puts content, for example. Same exact thing. However, then we're doing something weird here. File.rewind. So what does rewind do? So we can think of rewind as literally, so the way this kind of goes is when we read this file, the cursor starts at the top and then it goes to the bottom of the file. So literally, so at this point right here, the cursor's here at the bottom. So in order for us to rewrite the entire file, we have to first move the pointer, move this cursor technically up to the top. So technically back here. So now the cursor is back here as soon as we do file.rewind. Move the file pointer back to the start so we can overwrite the entire thing. If we didn't do this, we're just going to write to the bottom of the file. It's kind of weird, but the way that write works, like if this was just a W by itself, is it's just going to start from the top and anything below it, it's going to delete. So for that same scenario, if we want to rewrite this entire file, what we have to do is first move our cursor back to the top because we've already read through the entire file. So it's like go down and then it's like, okay, once I want to go back, I want to go back up and then I'm going to rewrite what the file is. File.puts, print out that the file has been overwritten, etc. Everything's the same. So really the weird thing here is this. Everything else in here is kind of exactly the same. We're doing file.read, which is exactly what we were doing when we were reading a file. Technically the simple one was, where's that? Right here. Here's the file.read for the regular begin. So we went into the file, we did contents equals file.read, puts contents. Technically, I could have just done puts file.read. Would have been the same exact thing. It's just, it's a little bit more readable that way. Okay. And then after that, going back to the bottom, we read it, and then we have to, once again, move the cursor back up to the top. After we move the cursor back to the top, then we can write to the file like normal, where we do file.puts, this is the new content. And then we just give a message saying, hey, it's been overwritten. And so to show you guys what this looks like, I'm gonna create, I already have an example.txt. It says testing, and here I'll put it like 10 times. And then let me go back, and if I run this code, we can see the original file content included testing 11 times. After that, we overwrit the file. And then from there, if we go back here now, we can see, oh, why did it do that? I was messing, there's something weird happening here. It should have just had that. There was something weird that was working earlier. How did I fix it? I apologize. What did I do last time? It's like not saving the right state of the file. Let me do this again. Test.rb. Or was it because of this? Let me restart this from scratch and try this. Okay, file has been overwritten. Yeah. Now if I go back here and change this to test. Cool, the original content was that. And then if we go back here, interesting, it's appending it. Okay, we're gonna get back to this. I swear it was working. I was messing with this earlier so I could show you guys actually. Tell you what, to make this simpler, I'm gonna mess with this and figure out exactly why this wasn't working. Why this isn't working the way I'm expecting it to. And I'm gonna create a recording for it for all of these R plus, W plus, and A plus. I'm gonna create a recording and I'm going to I'll share it with you guys so that way you guys can go over it over the weekend. Does that work with everybody? Sorry. I want to make sure I can explain it properly. Okay, cool. So we'll get back to this. I will share this for the time being so that way you guys can see it. Because those are technically all of them, but this thing's being weird. And real quick, let me just try A plus. So this should just add to the ending of the file. Okay, it did. So A plus seems to be working. I don't know why R plus is being weird, but we can mess with that later. And I'll share with you guys. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and do this. This. I don't need any of those. Solid. Okay. All right. So here's the cooler part to me, I think. Okay, so now we're gonna write a specific data structure to a file. And what I mean by that is lately we've been writing just text. By text, it's like we're writing a string. Like even in this example, we're just like, we've just been doing like file.puts a string. That isn't really how it's going to work in the real world. In the real world, we're going to be writing like an array or a hash or something like that. And so now we're going to see what it's like to write a specific data structure to a file. And so before we do that, the one thing I want to share with you guys is I briefly went through with you guys before that in the real world, or I don't know if I went through this. In the real world, we're going to use something called JSON. This is like the, um, this is what we, and what, I'm trying to think of the word for it. This is the structure of data, technically the what we use for the to call the structure of data. JSON stands for JavaScript object notation. So the JS is in JavaScript. So JavaScript object notation. All it is it's a hash. It's really that's kind of what it is. It's like it's a hash or it's like an array with hashes inside of it. One or the other. But really it's we can just think of JavaScript object notation as it being structured in like a hash, basically. That's what we can think of. Most data in the real world, I want to say most. There is like XML and stuff like that, but a lot, I want to say definitely like a lot of data that we're going to be dealing with in the real world is you're going to see this word JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. All it means is it's like a hash. That's really all that means. So with that being said, and I wanted to share that because the data structure that we're gonna be using now is technically we're gonna be converting it into JSON or into hashes because it's just formatted a little nicer for the computer to read. That's the whole reason why. We just want the computer to be able to read it easily. And so for that reason, we're gonna be using JSON. Okay, so to save complex data like arrays and hashes, we're going to convert them into a format suitable for files. Most files that we're using, as I mentioned, is going to be using JSON. That's the kind of the most common format for this purpose. So with that being said, the first thing we're going to need to add to our file is we're going to need to do require, and then it's going to be quotes JSON. So basically we're saying, hey, in this specific file, Ruby doesn't come built in with JSON, with like this JSON functionality that we're going to be using. So we have to say, hey, in this file specifically, import JSON's functionality, like import the ability to use JSON. So at the top of the file, we're going to add that. After that, now I'm going to create some data. So let's say I had like data equals, and I'm going to create a hash. I'm going to say like name equals Leon. Age equals 26. Village equals Vergata Heights. And if I wanted to, I could even do like an array in here. Maybe I can do like hobbies equals, and then this hobbies is going to be an array. So let's say it's like basketball, coding, hanging out with family, hanging out with family, something like that. So I have this data array, a data hash that has a bunch of key value pairs, and one of the key value pairs happens to be an array of data. So this is an example of what some real world data might look like. And so now I want to put this data into a file. And so how we can do that, and I'm going to do this, is we can do our regular begin. I'm going to go begin. I'm going to do my end. And in here, I'm going to go file equals file dot open. And then from there, I'm going to do the name of the file. I don't have so technically we're going to be using JSON files. So I'm going to go data.json. So as you guys have seen, we've been mostly using RB, which stands for Ruby, because that's where we write our Ruby code. We've also been using TXT for just a plain text file. And so another type of file that we're going to use right now is this JSON file. JSON is where we're going to write JSON. That's what's going to be in the file. And so we're specifically going to I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it data.json. I'm going to do a comma, and specifically I'm writing because I want it to create a new file. I'm not reading, I'm not appending, I'm going to write to this file. Okay, after that, I can go file.write. And then from there, I'm going to use the JSON syntax. I'm going to go JSON.pretty generate data. And so this looks a little weird, but the reason why we need to do this is because we're basically converting this is technically not proper formatted JSON just yet. So we're using this require JSON to add this functionality right here. So when we do this JSON with all caps, we're referencing this. So we're basically formatting it in a way that the computer is going to better like, basically, for storing this data in this file. That's the way we can kind of think of it. So we're doing file.write json.prettyGenerate data. And then from there, I can just do like, so now everything else here is going to be exactly the same. This is the only line that's different. Be like puts data saved in data.json. I can do my rescue. I can do like puts error occurred. And then from there, I can do my like my ensure. And then it's just gonna be like file.close if file. So everything else is exactly the same. This is literally the only line that's different. We're writing to a file in a specific way. And so now if I run this, we can see data saved in data.json. Now I have this data.json, and we can see here's the code. It's formatted like JSON. And so real quick, I'm going to cut this. I'm going to come here, and I want you guys to see what's the difference in between like actually JSON formatted stuff versus like basically what if we didn't JSON.pretty generate? That's what I want us to see. And so let's do this. This. We're just going to pass in the raw data. We're not reformatting it into JSON. We're just doing the raw data. And so I want to show you guys what will happen. If I run this, data saved. However, we can see this isn't formatted. As we can see, there's a bunch of errors in here. There's a bunch of errors because it's saying, hey, this data isn't formatted properly for JSON. And so if I'm going to cut that and I'm going to paste it right next to it. So if we go back and I'm going to grab this. So the difference between regular writing just the raw data that we have here and doing json.prettyGenerate, passing in the data to prettyGenerate is this. This is where we don't reformat it. This is where we do reformat it. Basically, it's kind of exact for us specifically as humans, it's exactly the same for the most part. But specifically for the computer, one of the things it's doing is it's converting this from the symbol, from the what's it called? Um, Symbol syntax to the string syntax. If we see that, if you guys remember, like when we write a hash, we could use a symbol name or we could use name like that. And so it's converting that. That's one of the things it's doing. On top of that, it's also formatting the code nicer. Like I copied and pasted exactly the same, and it also it's like formatted nice in the sense it's very readable to me. This is all in one line, and it's not very readable. And so that's what this does. Cool. Questions, comments, anything about this so far? Okay, cool. So let's do this. And I'm just going to run it again, just to make sure it works. Go here. Oh, I still had that in there. I need to delete that. Let me delete this one more time and run it one more time. Oh, I have both. That's why. Good thing I tested that. Okay. Now this should work. Solid. Now we can see this is an airing out. It's formatted nicely. Perfect. That's what we want. So we're using that. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to have you guys do something similar. Example of writing JSON to a JSON file. We don't need to do that. Yeah, okay. So let's do like it'll be easier if I do it in VS Code. Let's do it here. I want to give you guys an example of what the data will look like. So specifically, so I guess to go through it real quick, you're going to save an array of hashes into a file in JSON format. So you're going to define an array of hashes, kind of similar to how I did this data here. You're going to create an array of hashes. So this is a hash with an array in it. You're going to do it the opposite. You're going to do an array with a bunch of hashes in it. And then from there, you're going to write that array to a file named context.json in JSON format. That's really what you're going to do. But I just want to show you guys what it is that I'm expecting when I mean array of hashes. So for example, books, I have an array, and then I have a bunch of hashes. Title equals book one, author equals author one, etc. And then I'm going to go like that. Book two, author three, book three, etc. So this is what I mean when I say it should be an array of hashes versus this is just the hash by itself with that happens to have an array in it. So yeah, so your data that when you create an array representing contacts, it should look something like this. Ultimately, you can, and also like what data it is you have in here, it's kind of up to you. You could do like name, email, phone number, I don't know, whatever it is that you want, ultimately. But basically, you're going to create some data that looks like this, and you're going to use this, you're going to use JSON. You're going to need to make sure you do the required JSON, and you're going to write it to that specific file, whatever file it is. Cool. Sorry, a lot of talking, but you guys are good to share your screen and try that out now. Hey Matt, I like where you're going with that, but change books to contacts. So technically you're going to create an array of contacts. Solid. Hey Matt, can you hover over like where here? Can you hover over this? There's like a reload button right there. Yeah, click that. There you go. There it is. Solid. You just need to, I don't know, with Windows I've noticed specifically, it's like sometimes it doesn't refresh right away and you manually have to click it.
Thank you.
Yep. Dang, Ron, you're good at hotkeys. I like that you've been practicing.
Yes, sir. It helps a lot.
I got you. Hey Ron, that error's not clear. You're just missing an E in generate, yeah, at the end. I should try it again. I think this should work. I don't see anything else. Solid, there you go. And then so on this side, you may need to refresh by clicking that like refresh button. Yeah, there you go. So on Windows, I've noticed that like it doesn't refresh right away. It's like you have to manually do it. Yeah, solid. There you go. Cool. All right. Looks like everybody has got it. Actually, I'm just gonna get Stassi real quick and then I'll be right back. Give me like 2 minutes, guys. I'll be right back. All right. Okay. Let's see. You guys are good to stop sharing your screen. We'll go through the solution real quick. And then let's do this. Share that. Okay. Let's quickly go through the solution. Do this. So I'm just going to comment that out. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, the data is going to look something like this. So I'm going to go change this from books to contacts. And then from here, it's going to be like, this is all going to be name. And maybe this is like phone number. Oh, did one too many. Phone number. And then this could be like person 1, 2, 3. And maybe this one's going to be like number 1, 2, 3, whatever. It doesn't really matter. And then from there, I'm going to change this to contacts.json. Instead of it being data, it's contacts. And this one is also contacts. Cool. So basically, we're requiring JSON at the top because we're using it. I created a contacts array, which has a bunch of hashes for each contact. And then from there, I do begin. Start with file equals file.open contacts.json. I'm going to write to it. And then from there, we're going to write and we're going to reformat this contacts array to be to be a nicer formatted JSON for the computer. And then from there, we're going to write that to the file, let the user know it was saved or if it errored out, and then close the file. Run it. Perfect. Data saved. Go here. Perfect. We see our contacts. Fairly straightforward. Any questions? Anyone have any questions about this stuff so far? All right, cool. So the next thing we're going to do is let's see how we can read these contacts. So I'm going to comment all of this out. And so the next thing we want to do is like we want to be able to basically take this data in here and be able to kind of use it in some way, basically, or like see it, like basically get it back. We put it there. Now, how do we get it back in a sense is the way we can think about that. And so what we can do is I should have my required JSON right there. Perfect. So it's still there. And then from there, I'm just going to do a begin. I have my end, and then I'm going to go file equals file.open contacts.json, and we are specifically reading. We're not writing, we're going to read this time. And then from there, I'm going to go data equals, and this is going to be the specific syntax again. Because we're using this JSON syntax and this stuff, we're going to go JSON.parse, because we're going to parse the JSON that's there, or we're going to parse or go through, same word, file.read. So basically, we're going to read the file and we're going to convert it into JSON or convert it from JSON into, I guess, back into the regular Ruby syntax, the hash syntax that we're used to. That's what we're doing here. So we're going to parse it, parse whatever the file contains and change it back into like the regular Ruby syntax. And then from there, I can go like puts contacts loaded, and then I can like display it, for example. I can do like, now I can do like data.each do contact and puts contact, for example. And then I can do my rescue, puts error. I'm just going to keep it as simple. Ensure and file.close if file. All right, now let's go ahead and try this out. Perfect. So we can see contacts loaded, and then we can see our first person, our second person, our third person, etc., which is actually really cool. And if I wanted to, I could format this a little nicer. Maybe I could do like a string, and I can go like name. And it's like, oh, I already did that. Contact name. Let's just try this. Let's make sure this works. Okay, so question. Does anybody know why this isn't working? Or what do you guys think? Does anyone have any ideas? Why is this blank? We're not getting any errors, but it's like, why is there nothing here? Anyone have any ideas? Open to try anything.
Um, is it because there's no array that has the name, like names and stuff? I'm not sure.
So my, so we do, so for regardless of if it's an array or a hash, we do use the bracket syntax. But my hint is actually to look at this. So this is what the data actually looks like right here. We can see it because before I was doing it out, before I change it to this, we can see here's what it was when I was just printing out the contact. So with this in mind, what do you guys think? Why is this not working? The answer is in here. So I want us to take a look at this, the keys. So if we look at the keys, there's something different about them. They're strings, they're not symbols. And so because they're strings and not symbols, I have to make this a string and not a symbol. Now, if I run it again, there's their names. So the issue was that when we converted it back, okay, let's start here. When we originally created it, we were using the symbol syntax because that's what I'm used to. That's to me, it's the easiest one to write out. So that's what I just kind of default to. I most definitely could have done the same thing, but I could have used the string syntax of like this. I could have done this basically. This and this is effectively the same thing, like for the most part. It's just a matter of what's your preference when you're writing it out. When for this specific use case, where it matters, as we've went through before, is when we're getting the data. So there's a difference between now, there's going to be a difference between doing this versus this. And so that's what we need to keep in mind when we're dealing with hashes is how is the key set up? Is the key set up as a string or is the key set up as a symbol? Because that's what's really going to matter. Okay, so with that being said, even though we're using symbols up here, we technically convert it when we do this JSON.pretty generate, we convert it to be strings here. Because that's like whatever how it wants to format it when it does that pretty generate stuff. And so with that being said, now when we go back here to the bottom when we're reading it, when we do this JSON.parse, it's not converting it back into that symbol syntax. It's keeping it as the array, as the string syntax right there. We can see it. So that's why we have to use this. So that's where we have to be careful. We didn't get any errors, but we're not getting the data. And it's like, why is that? It's because we need to use the correct syntax. We need to use string versus symbol. Cool. Does that make sense to everybody? Solid, solid. Okay, so now I can go ahead and what's it called? Print this out nicer. So let's go like name. I think I only have two. It's just name and number. Name and phone number. Let's go phone number, contact, and this is going to be phone number. Now, if I run this, perfect. And to make it even a little nicer, maybe I can like puts bunch of lines. Solid. There we go. So we were able to load our contacts and we can see all of the different name and phone numbers for all of the contacts. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to share this with you guys and I'm not going to have you guys do it just given the time. Solution for reading the contacts.json. Okay. So there's that. And so the reason I guess what I want us to get to is this actually the last step. The last thing that I want us to do is actually do the CLI. So that's the final thing we'll do, and then we'll wrap up. We're going to do the CLI together, and we're going to work through it together. And then after that, I'm going to give, we'll go from there. We'll wrap up basically. Okay. So does this make sense to everybody though? Actually, before we move on? Sorry, I think I might have asked it already, but I just want to make sure. If you guys have questions, please feel free. Okay, so now we're going to revisit our contact management system. I think we might have built this one, but we're basically going to update it. And so here's what we're going to have. I'm going to share this all with you guys. Contact management CLI. So this is what we're going to be building off of. So we have this contact management CLI. If I run it, we can see we can add a contact, Leon 123, 123 at test.com, whatever. I can view them. If I view the contact, perfect. I can see there's a contact list. However, my issue is now if I exit this and start it up again and try to view it, there's no contacts. So this is where the what's it called, file reading and writing is going to come into play, because this is where we can basically store contacts like this. And then from there, whenever we reload this contact CLI, we can basically do this right here and have contacts there set up already. It's going to be pre-populated. It's like we have a database that we're reading and writing from, which is actually really cool. So that is what we're going to do together right now. Okay, before we do that, I wanted to ask, does anybody, actually, I was going to say, does anyone have any questions here, but you guys can go through this after this and you guys can let me know. We can go through any specific part here. I think the only weird thing in here might be this, where we do the dot find, but basically the dot find, we'll go through that. We'll do that. We briefly went through it before, but we'll go through that again later. Okay, so now I want to basically modify this program to load contacts from a file. And so we're going to do this all together. And then I'm going to share the code each step of the process. So I just shared what I have currently. And now we're going to update this to basically load contacts from some file. Let me grab this require.json. All right, cool. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is require JSON. If you didn't have it already, I'm adding it here. After that, now we're going to have to load the contacts somehow. So to load the contacts, we're going to do something almost exactly the same as this, actually. And I'll rewrite it step by step. So we're going to go, we can do begin, end, and then from there I can go like file equals file.open, and it can be like contacts.json. Specifically, we're specifically reading. And then from there I can go contacts equals json.parse file.read. But then there's one other weird thing that we need to do here. And actually, it's going to make more sense here. We're going to add a comma, symbolize names, :true. All this does is it converts these hashes from using the string syntax to using symbols. So that's why it says symbolize names, :true. And just to show you guys that that's what it does, I'm going to comment all of this out. I'm going to do this real quick. And let's run this code. If you guys remember, this gives us, what's it called? Actually here, I'll do this. Puts contact. We can see that they're strings. These are the keys here are strings. As soon as I add comma, symbolize names, :true, and run this again, now we can see they're symbols. So now we can use the original syntax here that we wanted to, and I can come back here and I can make this :name and :phone number. And we can see it works exactly like what we're expecting, because now we converted them into symbols. So with that being said, we can do the exact same thing down here with this, symbolize true. So that's what symbolize names, :true does. Okay, comment that back out. Yes, Junior. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
So I get the symbolized names. I get and converts names back to the symbols, but do you have to do it for the phone number also or no?
I don't know why it calls it names, but this names is not specific to this name. So if you notice
Oh,
here, it's actually doing it for phone number as well. By
okay.
symbolize names, it's saying that it's going to symbolize all of the keys in general. I wish that it just said symbolize keys. I don't know why they named it that way, to be honest. But yeah, great
Okay,
question. Because I wasn't sure about that at first too until I messed with it. But yeah,
cool.
solid question. Okay, let's go back here and let's continue with this. Okay, so now we've successfully changed our contacts, or we've successfully loaded our contacts into here. So basically we started with contacts as an empty array, and then now we're reassigning contacts to be the array from contacts.json. So from here, basically. After that, now the next thing we can do is we can just print out that puts contacts loaded successfully. Because really, this is all we needed to do. These two lines is technically all we needed to do to populate this. That's really all we need to do. Now it's just some error handling. So I can go like rescue, and then I can do in here, I'm just going to put like puts, error, whatever, ensure file dot close if file. And then from there, really now we can just start the loop. So now officially, and actually the other thing quickly though is technically in our loop, we have phone and email. But up here we don't. And so I'm actually going to delete the contents of this file just so that way we start fresh. Because technically the structure, so another thing that I want us to keep in mind is that how we structure our data is going to start to be important. Here, we're structuring it with just name and phone number. In our code down here, we have name, phone, not phone number, and we have email. Because I don't care about this data, I'm just going to delete it. Theoretically, I would have fixed it, but I don't really care for it right now. I could just delete it. So I'm just going to delete it. And we're just going to start from scratch. And so the way this should work is we start by just loading the files, loading the file, and then from there, we're going to start our regular loop do. If the user clicks 1, we're going to get their name, their phone, their email. We're going to create the array, and we're going to push that into the contacts array. And that's how it should work. So let's go and do this. So if I go, oh, we got an error. It says error. Contacts.json. I think I know what this is. Here, we're going to add one more thing. We're going to say if file.exist. And then we're going to go, let's go contacts.json. You push these all up one. And then I'm going to go else. Puts no contacts found, starting with an empty contact list. So basically, here, and I think that's what happened. Let's just test it out. Getting error still. Where's my error? I have a syntax error here somewhere. So it's saying that it's finding the file we're reading. Symbolize names is true. File.read. Contacts, rescue, puts error, ensure. If I do this, what is the error? I actually don't know what's the issue. Unexpected end of input at line 1, column 1. Line 1, column 1. Line 1. Line 1, column 1 of what? Unexpected end of input at line 1, column 1. Is there space here? Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to delete this. Start from scratch, Let's try this again. No contacts found. There we go. Okay, cool. No contacts found starting with an empty contact list. All right, so let's go ahead and add a contact. Leon 123 123 at test.com. Cool, contact added. Now if I view, there's our contact. If I exit, go back, and now if I try to view out, however, right here, we can see no contacts found. Why do we think there's no contacts found? Or maybe a better question is, have we told it to write contacts anywhere? Maybe is a better question. We haven't yet. All we've added is reading. So if we had this contacts.json file, then we're basically saying, hey, go ahead and load the context from there. Right now, we don't have any place where we're telling it, hey, write to the file. And so what we need to do is we need to add that functionality. And so what we could do is we can go def, I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call it save contacts. And it takes in one parameter, contacts. And so then here I can go like file.open contacts.json. Or let's do the regular way. File equals, let's do our begin and file equals file.open contacts.json. We're gonna write, so we're gonna do a W, and then from there we can go file.write json.prettyGenerate, passing in the contacts from here. Finally, we can do puts contacts saved, and we can do our rescue puts error ensure file.close if file. Cool. And so now that we have this function, we can basically go down here to where we exit. So we don't need to read and write to the database every single time that we create a contact. Technically, all we need to do is when the user exits, that's where we'll save the contacts. So we can just do save contacts, passing in contacts, say goodbye, and break. So the way this should work, going through from the top, originally we check to see, is there a contacts.json file? If there is, then go ahead and read the file from it. Read it and set the contacts array to include all of that data. After we do that, then from there, we start the loop. We allow the user to add some stuff, view some stuff, delete some stuff, whatever. And then finally, once the user is finished and wants to turn off this application, we call save contacts. So save contacts is going to go up here, and it's going to basically write to the file, updating it. And so this is where overwriting the entire file makes sense, because we're going to overwrite the entire file with all of the updated contacts. We're not adding one contact, we're adding all of the contacts. So every single time that we make any change and we save it, it's going to rewrite the entire thing, which isn't really optimal when we have a huge data, but specifically for this use case, it's completely fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it out. So enter or what you want to do. I want to add a contact. Let's go and make this bigger. Let's go Stasi 123 at test.com. Enter your choice. If I want to view, perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and exit. Solid. So it says, we can see right there, after I exited, it says contact saved. It says contact saved because it went to the save contacts and it saved the contact. So now if we go here, we can see there's the contact. It's saved. So now when I turn this thing back on, we can see contacts loaded successfully. And if I view the contact, we can see there's my contact. That's there already. It's pre-populated. And so if I add in another contact just to test it out one more time, let's say Cami 321 at test.com. And if I view, we can see now I have two contacts. If I exit, contact saved, there it's saved automatically. Now we have Stasi and Cami, but it didn't append Cami to it. It rewrote the entire file, including Stasi and Cami. Okay, sorry, there's a lot going on here. I didn't want to keep you guys too long. That's why I kind of wanted to go through a little bit quick. We can walk through this in more detail at the start of class tomorrow. But I did want to get through this because I think this is actually really, really cool. Because now it's like we actually have a real kind of working database in a sense. Yeah, questions, comments about this? Yes, Ron.
Sorry, you said write overwrites it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did it just add on, like append to the contacts?
So tech,
Or sorry,
yeah, no,
was
that's
that what you said we were gonna go through tomorrow? Or
no. So we're not appending, we're rewriting the entire file. So the way it works, when I turn this application on, so I turned it on, it says contacts loaded successfully. So that's because up here, we tell it to do contacts loaded successfully. If it successfully opens up contacts.json, reads it, and then it sets up what contacts are here. I'm so sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. I missed a call twice. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So sorry, Ron. So great question. We're not appending because we're rewriting the entire thing, basically. Because the way it works, as I was kind of saying, we're loading the entire file. We're loading this entire context, this context.json, and we're setting this empty array right here, which starts as an empty array, and we're resetting it to be all of the contexts from here. So every single time that we load we turn this thing on, it automatically sets this context empty array to be this entire thing. This could have 100 contacts, it could have 1,000. Every single time, we're assigning context to be the entire thing. And so with that being said, where the appending comes in is right here with this dot push. If we add a contact, we're creating this array, I mean this hash, and we're pushing this new hash into the current list of contacts, but technically it's not in here. It's within like the command line interface, if that makes sense. It isn't until we actually leave or call save contacts. Oh my goodness. It isn't until we get there and call save contacts that then we go up here and we rewrite the entire file with that updated contact. If that kind of makes sense. Sorry,
yes, okay. I think it makes sense.
sorry about that, guys. Ron, I'm so sorry. What were you saying?
No, you're good. I think I get it now. So it does rewrite it, but it adds everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it rewrites it and then adds what we currently entered. Okay, I
Correct.
think
In
it
a
makes sense
real
now.
in a real world database, we're not rewriting the database every single time. Like in your phone, when you add a contact, you're obviously not rewriting the entire thing. You're appending, in a sense. You're pushing to the array of contacts in your phone. We're specifically doing this for simplicity in our case, because appending, instead of changing the way our ad and all that kind of stuff works, it's just simpler to just since we already have access to all of the contacts and it gets updated when we do this dot push. It's like, okay, let's just rewrite to the file and rewrite with all of our new contacts. It's just simpler that way for us right now. In the future, yes, we are going to only update a specific one or add to a specific one, like add to the end, basically, push to the end. However, for this specific scenario, for simplicity, we're just rewriting the entire thing. Yeah, great question. Other questions, comments about this? Okay, cool. Here, I'm gonna share this with you guys, and I'm not gonna have you guys do it right now. Let's do this. Okay. Let me start from the top. From here. CLI with I/O to use a context.json to use as a database. Okay. So the other reasoning behind that simplicity is we don't need to add any functionality for remove. The reason behind that is because as soon as we load all the contacts here, we load it all. Contacts now is going to be the entire contacts here. And if we remove something, if we do enter contact to remove, it doesn't save here automatically, but as soon as we do save contacts, it's going to rewrite the entire file with that removed thing. So that's where the simplicity comes in. Technically, if we wanted to, we could have made it so when we remove, we update it immediately. And if we add, we update it immediately. In a real world, that's the way it would work. However, again, for simplicity and just for ease of use for us right now, all we need to do is just update the state of this every single time that we close the application. And that effectively makes it so we're only updating or we're updating whether it was added or deleted or whatever. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I'm not giving you guys any homework to do anything per se, but what I would like for you guys to do is really take a look and mess around with this. And if you want to, it's completely optional. But to do something similar for one of your other CLIs, whether it was the one we did over the weekend or whether it was the one like the shopping cart from like the first week or whatever, completely up to you. But I'd love for you guys to mess with this more, not because we're going to be doing a lot of file reading and writing in the future, but because I like you guys understanding this idea of reading and writing to some sort of database. That's the concept that I want you guys to grasp from this. And so there's no real homework, but again, like the main thing I want you guys to do is run this locally and read through it, mess with it, see how it works, see how you can break it. And if you do have time, then that's where I'm going to ask that you guys do this same thing for your shopping cart or for your catalog or whatever it is that we did. Does that work with everybody? Solid. And I'll write this out here when we're done. Cool. I don't think I have anything else. Tomorrow we're gonna go back into OOP and we're gonna do a couple other things. Friday we're gonna do a group project, and then starting Monday next week, we're actually gonna go into Rails, which is gonna be really cool, where we'll actually be dealing with databases and stuff like that, which is actually really fun. That'll be really cool. All right. I don't have anything else. I'll hang out for a little bit if anybody has any questions or wants to go through anything. But other than that, I'm gonna let you guys go. You guys have a great night. Thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
See you.
Later, guys.
Good night, guys. Stay safe.
Bye,
Just
everyone.